So, it's pretty evident by now that today is a very sad day. We've lost 20 innocent children. Can't stress that enough. 20 innocent children and 6 adults. And yet another mass shooting in the United States. Okay. Speaking as an outsider, I don't know much about the politics of the United States. I don't know much about the gun regulations, but I did do quick reading, and from what I can tell, basically anybody can have any gun they want. There's a waiting period of a certain amount of days, and there's a background check, but if, you've never snapped before, you've never done anything, you're fine. I mean, look at the guy from, where was it, Aurora, with the mass shooting in the summer in a movie theater. He had no priors, absolutely no priors, and yet he showed up with, you know, completely armed, self-armed, and with these semi-automatic assault rifles that he purchased legally with an abundance amount of, you know, ammunition. Like, I'm sorry, but if everything's supposed to be tracked the way it is, which I know now, it's a lot of those records have been, basically torn and thrown out, and nobody cares about it. But if there's a record, store record or whatever, of a man buying that many rounds of ammunition for a rifle like that, doesn't that kind of show off some kind of a red flag if he's not in the military? Because that's basically the only reason that these, assault rifles are around, is for war zones, for anybody in the military of any country. That's what they were created for. World War One, World War Two. That's what these weapons were created for, war zones, and war zones only. So why exactly is it illegal in the United States for a random person? They can write a test and they can get these rifles. What are they needed for? Your right to bear arms. I get that's in your Constitution, okay? Which was, might I say, written like 200 years ago, but believe it as you may. At that point, guns were meant for, okay, maybe protection and hunting. So for protection, I'm still not a huge fan of handguns, but I mean, police carry them. So, protection. For your hunting, you need shotgun or like a 30-06 rifle. What do you need? Something that can hold hundreds of rounds of ammunition that you can shoot out in a moment's time. What do you need that for in the United States? In a small town of, what was it, like 30,000 people, to go into an elementary school of children between the ages of 5 and 10. Children between the ages of 5 and 10, they, they're lucky. They don't realize the bad in the world. They see the world that's in front of them. They haven't developed their prefrontal cortex, so they don't exactly understand these things. So their world is the safety of that school. Maybe not every kid has a happy-go-lucky life there. I don't know. I don't know these children. I don't know any stories of any of the parents there. I mean, my condolences go out to any of the victims' families and everything, but children at that age, they go to school for safety. They feel safe, they feel happy. They see their peers and they get to see their favorite teachers and they get to do arts and crafts and they learn things, they get their education. In those walls, it is supposed to be safe. And now, we have to grow up in a society fearing, children are fearing now. children were completely messing up their developmental process, having those years of only focusing on themselves and what's in front of them and believing in the beauty of the world, that everything's going to be perfect and, their lives are going to be happy at all times. That's part of childhood. And not every child gets that, I understand. Not every child comes from a great home. But now with these kind of situations, we're robbing hundreds of basically every child's childhood now, because they have to fear going to school whether or not they're going to get shot. And now, especially the victims, the survivors of this unbelievably tragic shooting, the faculty members have to walk into that school every single day and relive it. They have to fight off nightmares. And now the children, whether they understand now and are going to be dealing with it now in the coming times, or a year or two from now when they actually start to understand what happened to them and what happened to their peers. What these poor children have to go through, having nightmares of watching their best friend shot, or their teachers, or their principals, or whoever the victims were, because honestly we don't know, because it's such an early time afterwards. It's such a fresh incident. We don't know exactly who the shooter was. We don't know exactly the situation. We don't know much. That's the way the media keeps it. And I completely understand that, because it's respect for the families. But if we really want to respect these families, we want to stop what's going on. We want to stop putting these kinds of guns in anybody's hands, because it's not necessarily, oh, they go for a psych evaluation, because anybody can snap. Looking over the history of these different kinds of shootings, it's generally been a large percentage of it, a lot of trends that I've seen have been middle-aged people, or getting into their senior years, being at a company for an X amount of years, getting laid off for whatever reason, or having fights with upper management, or whatever the situation being, snapping. Because let's face it, that can happen to any one of us. Doesn't mean that we're psychotics. Anybody can snap. The mind's a great thing. These things happen. You don't understand it all the time. They snap. They go into their workplaces and they shoot it up and they kill people. So it's not about keeping the guns out of the wrong hands. It's about keeping these any kinds of guns that you do not need, which honestly, in my opinion, you don't really need any of them. But for recreational gun purposes, gaming, hunting, that kind of fun, fine. Keep that in your mind. Keep that in your life. Whatever. It's a hobby. Whatever. I'm not gonna push my personal opinions on that on you. But we don't need these assault rifles. We don't really need handguns. Unless you're a police officer and you keep that on your hip to not only keep yourself safe, but keep your community safe as well. That's the way that us in North America deal with it. I mean, in London and the UK, they seem to do pretty well with their batons, but we are who we are. That's just the way the culture's difference there. That's fine, but we don't need this. We don't need this happening. So if you don't want to see this continuously, you don't want to see another shooting get swept under the rug in a couple weeks and be forgotten until the next one comes up, and then we see this long list of this continuous past, where we lost 20 innocent children. 20 innocent children because of these regulations. Put your foot down. Speak as a person. I can't do much because I'm an outsider looking in. But if you live in the United States, speak. Say something. Okay? You have a pretty good president who seems to be focusing more on the social change as opposed to the economic change of your country. He seems like he's going to listen. So if enough people stand up and say this needs to stop, it doesn't matter about the NRA, NRA, or any of these companies that are pushing through the government to, pass these different laws where anybody can get these guns, like snap your fingers. Honestly, I can't even think of right now where I could get a gun. I don't even know where a gun shop is anywhere near me. And I grew up in a family that hunted, so that says something there. I just think we should all come together and put our foot down and stop this, because you live in the land of the free, where the people run the country. So run your country. Put your word out there. Get your voices heard by your government, in whether it be your state government or your national government. Do what you can. You may seem like you're only one person, but you can do a heck of a lot for one person. Whether you persuade hundreds of minds or just one. Even if I just persuade one, I'm doing my part to try and stop this. You should too. So my condolences go out to these families that have lost the children and the faculty members, the victims themselves that have witnessed this and are going to have to relive this every day, the families of these victims that have to listen to their children tell horror stories about watching their best friend die in front of them, or getting rushed out by these federal agents because these regulations have been passed and anybody can walk into a school now, or a church, or a government office. Many government offices now, they can't do anything about someone having a concealed handgun on them. This needs to stop. We need to grow up and realize that your Constitution was, written 200 years ago, but maybe it's time for a bit of a change in this, and a little bit of an exception to this right to bear arms. So let's stop this. Let's change this. Let this be the last huge tragedy. Let us know that we did everything we could to prevent this from happening again. Thank you for listening.